You can use the API Inspector along with your browser's developer tools to really get a better understanding of how to use and access the FirstClass API. I've expanded the width of my API Inspector web page to the right using my browser of choice, Google Chrome. To invoke the Chrome developer tools, I choose Developer Tools from the Tools option in Chrome's menu. Firefox has a similar set of menus. I have set the tool to display docked on the right side of my page. If I click on the Network tab and now log into the server, I get to see the request being made to the server and the response. From here, I can inspect the headers and review the JSON response that has been returned by the server after a successful login. It is this response that I capture and display in my API Inspector's response window. I can also see both the request and response cookies. If I was unable to connect, the headers and the response from the server would be a good place to start to determine where you have gone wrong. The Console tab is really helpful once you have connected, as it will help you better understand and extract the data from your query responses. With the API Inspector, I've set up a global variable named FC Data that holds the data response received by our AJAX request. On login, it looks like what we see in our display window here. The console has access to this variable, so if I start to enter FC data in the console, we see that Chrome uses code completion and knows what variables I have access to. Choosing FC data, then return, will display that returned object. If I have trouble trying to navigate to a specific value that might be nested deeply, I can use the code completion to help me. For example, what if I want to retrieve the second vkey value as we did in our JSON video? I start with FC data, then dot login reply, dot vkeys, and now I specify array item 1, and then dot vkey, and press return. Some of the values represent dates, like last login. Let's bring this up on our console. FC data dot login reply dot last login. This is the number of seconds since January 1st, 1904, which is not too helpful. Fortunately, the API Inspector has provided you with a number of functions in the jslibs.js file, and it would be worth your while looking through these. The one we want is this one, firstclass.fcp.satime to JS local time. Because these functions are loaded, they are available to me in the console, so I can just start typing and let the code completion take care of my spelling. So firstclass.fcp.satime to JS local time is our function. So we can copy our fcdata.loginreply.lastLogin from before and run it through our function like this. The date is now in a readable format. Let's take a look at the JSON data that is returned when we request session info. You get a number of field values here that you may or may not know what they represent. In the next video, I'll give you some ideas on how to understand them, but in the meantime, I just want to know how to better represent the values. For example, this value for fcdata.formData7026 is HTML with the special characters escaped. Let's get this on the console. Looking in the jslibs file again, we see that there is a firstclass.util section, and we have an escape HTML and an unescape HTML function. So we can use the unescape HTML function to better represent our value. So again, firstclass.util.unescape.html, and then I can run fcdata.formData7026 through our function. As one final example, let's start at our desktop and open our mailbox to find a message web ID. So we open our desktop. We'll search and find the mailbox web ID. We'll copy and add that to our URL and submit it. With our mailbox open now, we can capture the web ID of one of our messages. Let's add that to our URL and open it. Here we see that our returned JSON has a body field. Let's check that out in our console. It reveals what appears to be just a bunch of random characters. What it is base64 encoded text. Our JSLibs has a base64 decode function that we can use. So let's try it. base64.decode fcdata.body and now it reveals the decoded HTML, which we could use in our application to display the body of our message. So, in summary, you can use the API Inspector and your browser's development tools to really get behind the scenes to help you build your code. In the next video, we'll take a look at how you can determine what the numeric key values represent, and we'll follow that up with a simple process that I use to build my API applications.